England's elimination at the hands of Argentina left a deep wound, but few reactions were as forceful as Wayne Rooney's. The former England captain did not try to protect Thomas Tuchel, did not look for excuses in the refereeing, and did not present the defeat as a simple consequence of Lionel Messi's greatness. For Rooney, England had qualification in its hands and threw it away because of a decision born out of fear. His diagnosis was direct. When England went 1-0 up, it stopped trying to win the match and began playing solely to avoid losing it. According to Rooney, that transformation was not accidental. It was caused by the bench. Bringing on defenders, changing the system, and giving up on the pursuit of a second goal sent a devastating message to the players. The coach no longer trusted them to compete with Argentina on equal terms. Rooney summed up his position with a crushing statement. "Tuchel's decisions cost us the match." He did not talk about bad luck. He did not talk about an isolated play, nor did he single out a defender for losing his man. He pointed at the coach and argued that the elimination began long before the goals from Enzo Fernandez and Lautaro Martinez. It began the moment England decided to drop back, pack players around its own penalty area, and hand possession to the world champion. For Rooney, the problem was not only tactical, it was also psychological. When a team scores in a semi-final and immediately sees attacking players taken off so defenders can come on, the players understand the message. The forwards stop thinking about hurting the opponent. The midfielders begin running backward. The defenders feel as though they will have to hold out forever. And the opposition realizes it has permission to attack without fear of being exposed. That was exactly what Argentina needed. The harshness of his reaction also had a precedent. Rooney had already warned during the tournament that England was playing on the edge and that certain tactical problems could place the team in serious difficulty once it faced a truly powerful opponent. The semi-final ended up confirming his concern in the worst possible way. Against less clinical teams, sitting deep could be a temporary solution. Against Argentina, it meant giving them exactly the kind of match they enjoy most. An emotional, drawn-out contest decided by the ability of their biggest stars to find a crack. Until England's goal, the match had been uncomfortable and tight. England pressed, fought for every ball, and forced Argentina to work to move forward. But after the 1-0 goal, the entire picture changed. Tuchel took off goal scorer Anthony Gordon and reinforced the defense with Ezri Konsa. Later, he also turned to Dan Burn and Nico O'Reilly. The idea was obvious. Close down the spaces, defend the penalty area, and protect the lead. Rooney believed that gamble was almost an invitation to disaster, not because playing with 5 defenders is always wrong, but because the opponent was Argentina, a team accustomed to surviving, playing under pressure, and finding solutions when it appears to be beaten. In his view, giving territory, possession, and time to a national team led by Messi was playing with fire. The former striker argued that England had already escaped similar situations during the tournament. It had dropped back against other opponents and managed to hold on. But doing it against the world champion was different. Argentina had more quality, more experience, and, above all, a belief that grew with every passing minute. The deeper England dropped, the more Argentina believed in the comeback. Rooney's criticism directly challenged one of the explanations offered by Tuchel. The coach said the change of system was intended to deal with Argentina's crosses and the interior spaces it was finding. He also claimed that the team was already losing control before the substitutions. Rooney, however, interpreted the coach's decisions as making the problem worse. By removing attacking speed, England lost any possibility of threatening on the counterattack. Argentina was able to push its lines forward without paying any price. The Argentine center-backs stopped worrying about running toward their own goal. The full-backs advanced. The midfielders established themselves around England's penalty area. Messi began receiving the ball closer and closer to the decisive zone. England won the ball back, but it no longer had a clear way out. Harry Kane became isolated. Jude Bellingham began to disappear from the game. Every clearance came back as another Argentine attack. Rooney was especially harsh about the emotional effect of the substitutions. As he explained, an attacking player who sees those moves can lose confidence. He can feel that the plan is no longer to impose yourself, but simply to hold on. And when an entire team begins wondering how much time is left, it usually stops controlling what is happening on the field. That was reflected in one brutal statistic. Between Gordon's goal and Lautaro's winner, England had only 12% possession. It was not organized defending with the ability to counterattack. It was a retreat. Argentina did not merely dominate the ball, it moved the match into England's penalty area and turned the final minutes into a siege. For Rooney, Enzo Fernandez's equalizer did not come out of nowhere. It was the logical consequence of pressure that England had accepted it would have to endure. And once the score became 1-1, the psychological damage was already enormous. Tuchel had built a team designed to protect a lead that no longer existed. When England needed to attack again, its main offensive weapons were either off the field or completely disconnected from the game. The former captain even admitted that, as he watched the changes, he began to fear that England would not hold on. His feeling was that the team was preparing itself to suffer for far too long. That perception makes the defeat even more uncomfortable. The outcome was not entirely unexpected. From the outside, it was possible to see the match gradually tilting toward Argentina, while England's bench continued betting on survival. Rooney did not completely absolve the players of responsibility either. He used a particularly painful word to describe the collapse: England crumbled. In a World Cup semi-final, he argued, it is not enough to follow a defensive structure. The team's leaders must also demand the ball, slow the game down, and prevent fear from taking control of the group. Kane and Bellingham were the players expected to assume that responsibility. However, during the decisive stretch, they were reduced to spectators. England needed personality to break out, keep possession, and force Argentina to drop back a few yards. It did not find it. The national team that had looked competitive for much of the match ended up playing like a side convinced that the equalizer was inevitable. The comparison between the two benches was devastating. Scaloni introduced more attacking talent, pushed his team forward, and communicated that victory was still possible. Tuchel responded by removing attacking threat and reinforcing the back line. One acted out of ambition, the other out of fear. For Rooney, that contrast ultimately defined the semi-final. Messi was also central to the analysis, although Rooney avoided using him as a convenient excuse. Recognizing his quality does not mean accepting that defeat was inevitable. Precisely because one of the most decisive players in history was on the other side, England needed to stop him from receiving the ball near the penalty area while also maintaining a threat that forced him to look over his shoulder. The opposite happened. Messi was given the space and freedom he needed to become involved again and again. When the match entered stoppage time, he delivered the cross for Lautaro Martinez. The striker's header turned everything Rooney had feared since the substitutions into a goal. England trapped, with no way out, and waiting for the clock to save it. The criticism becomes even stronger because Tuchel later said he had no regrets. For Rooney, insisting that the decision was correct when the plan ended in elimination could sound like an inability to acknowledge an obvious mistake. A coach can lose while taking risks. What is far more difficult to accept is losing after voluntarily giving up on attacking. England had spent 6 decades waiting to return to a World Cup final. It came within minutes of achieving it. But Rooney believes that proximity should not soften the analysis. On the contrary, it makes the responsibility even greater. This was not a team that had been outplayed for 90 minutes. It was a team that took the lead and then abandoned everything that had allowed it to get there. His final message was uncomfortable, but impossible to ignore. England did not fall solely because of Argentina's quality. It fell because when it had the opportunity to prove it was ready to become world champion, it chose to protect itself. Tuchel turned a semi-final that demanded courage into an exercise in survival. Argentina sensed the fear, moved forward, and punished it. Rooney did not ask for consolation. He demanded accountability. Because in his view, England did not lose the final on Lautaro's header. It lost it when it stopped believing it could score the second goal.